The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I am here today with Ezra Parter, Evan Liu, and Jackie K. I believe Brendan Vogt will also be joining us so that we can talk about your favorite Avalanche, Colorado Avalanche team. We have lots to touch on today with the trade deadline fastly approaching. We'll get into a little bit of a recap and a reaction from last week's games as usual. We will indeed get into the approach at the trade deadline for the Avalanche, and we will spin the wheel of trade deadline targets with a bit of a twist this season that I will expand on later, and we will do our bold predictions to round out the show. Thank you to the three of you for joining me so far today. Evan, you look like you're having some internet issues. I will give you a heads up on that. You're freezing every once in a while, but if you enjoy this programming, folks, please head on over to our website, milehighhockey.com. We have all of our written material over there to include previews and recaps, opinion pieces. We do some fun roundtables. Jackie just released a bingo card that we will touch on a little bit later. And there's just so much fun stuff going on over on our website. So please head over there. And if you enjoy this, like, subscribe, and share it with your fellow Avalanche fans. All right, let's just get right down to business. Looming, yes, vaguely silver, it's looming. I want to talk about the Avalanche and their most recent games after the Four Nations tournament. Jackie, I'm going to start with you today. Those two losses felt very similar over the weekend. How much do you take from that after the break? And talk about the article you wrote, I believe this past week, in which you touched on kind of the Avalanche having a little bit of scoring woes.
Yeah, I'd say that this weekend was very typical of their up and down nature.
Mm-hmm.
It was obviously the down portion. We've seen better, and I'm sure we will see better. There's an upcoming homestand. But I don't think it's overreactionary to try to examine it, because it's not like the first time that we've seen this. It's a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happened to be back-to-back over a weekend, but we've seen this pattern. So a lot of the talk right after, especially the St. Louis game, is like, nobody can score. They haven't received a goal from a forward, not named McKinnon or Netchess or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to look at who is on this team and what are their career high production rates.
Right.
You're relying on a bunch of guys that are at best 30-point players, if not worse. Like, they've made guys like Parker Kelly regulars with very low production in their careers. Kivi Ranta's career high going into this year was 11 points.
Right.
And so it's just funny to me, like, why can't these guys score? Because that's not what they do. Like, anything you get from them is basically a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the true secondary guys like Lehkonen, Nichushkin, Drouin. Has anybody looked up their shooting rates this year to see where their goals have come from? Lehkonen shooting at 22%.
Wow.
Nichushkin 21%. Drouin 17%. When Colton was on a hot streak, he was as high as 22%.
Yeah.
And it's like, what happened to his goal scoring? Well, he regressed back to his career shooting percentage. He's still over his career high. Middlestat, for as much as everyone complains, he's still over his career average.
Yeah.
So the question is, where is it supposed to come from? It's not like, where did it go? It's like, what are you expecting? So McKinnon's even just a little bit under his. So I do think he's going to, I mean, he's at 21 goals right now. So I do expect McKinnon's going to fill up a little. But Makar's over his career shooting percentage. So where is the scoring supposed to come from? That's the answer.
Yeah. When you talk about this subject, I can't help but think about, like, a lot of the times in recent history with the Avs making deals or signing people, you're like, oh, here comes a career year incoming. And I do think that is true about a lot of guys, just because I do think this system is built so that you can have that per every role down the lineup.
Is it anymore, though?
But I agree with you, because I think what we saw in the real culmination of that idea were guys who had shown to have a higher ceiling that they just never realized. They got brought in, and then that ceiling was realized. What it feels more like now is there's not a ceiling to even see, but they're kind of forcing those guys into that environment and expecting them to live up to an expectation that was never set in the first place. So I agree with you. It's like last week you said putting a round peg in a square hole. That's what it feels like in a lot of this situation right now with the Avalanche. Would you agree with that, Jackie? Sorry, I cut you off there.
I mean, pretty much. It's like, I understand that it's worked for a few guys, like Drouin has done better. But is he done better than his career high? No. But I don't think they have the team that is just going to give everybody this boost. That like, oh, this team scores so much. Like, even Bednar talked about, we don't have that team anymore. Right. We only get a couple points from all of these guys over the last 10, 12 games. That's your reality. Like, why do you think this team should boost everyone at this point? McKinnon only plays with a certain number of players. Mm-hmm. He doesn't play with Middlestat. He doesn't play with some of the others. He only plays pretty much with, like, Lehkonen and Drouin and Netchess. That's who's going to get, bumped up from him. Everyone else, they got to do it on their own. And they just don't have the team for that anymore. So you can't just hope for more scoring.
And I think we saw the other Evan drop an article as well. But Jackie, I'm with you there. And folks, if you haven't already, please head on over to the website and look up Jackie's latest work. Where is the scoring gone? To surmise what your headline is. But Evan, you did the recap for the Blues game, so I'm curious about your perspective. I noticed in the takeaways that you were particularly concerned about the Avs having slow starts, especially considering the fact that they're coming off of a break. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Oh, he's frozen. Sorry, Evan. It looks like
I'll do my best with the internet.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna stop you and have you circle back around, see what you can figure out, because you're not coming in at all. Ezra, what do you think about that? How do you feel about that break and kind of the slow starts?
Well, it's definitely disappointing. I mean, but the reality of this team is
They've started a lot of games slow. They started the season slow. It's not that surprising to see them start back off the break slow. As much as it is disappointing, I mean, obviously this is an opportunity against two relatively weaker teams that you should be able to beat and get some Central Division points. You know, it was an opportunity missed for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it changes my outlook on the team overall. They still need some secondary scoring into the lineup, but they still feel like, you know, the same team to me. It's just disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah. Evan, I think we got you for a moment at least. Ezra kind of just expanded on, yeah, it's kind of the same old story as it's been like all season long, but with the perspective of the break, how does that change things for you?
Hello, mic check 1 2. This is
Yes,
I'm
you're good.
like the Colorado Avalanche right now, where it's just not coming together for me.
Yeah.
Well, I think I looked at Sunday's game. It was after a long week for me personally. I was like, all right, let's just see what they got, and they looked like me at the end of this week, just sluggish, slow, like no sort of spirit to them, I guess I'll say. And I think it's more concerning, especially when you look at years past. I look specifically at last year, if you remember, out of that All-Star game break, they lost 7 of 10. If you remember, they went on like I think a 5-game East Coast road trip. They lost 4 of 5, and those were not pretty games. Just limited. It's only 2 games, at least so far after this break, but neither have really been all that great, I would say. The Nashville game, I was able to listen to part of that while I was working, and it sounded like a lot of like bad bounces, missed calls, missed opportunities, whatever you want to call that, right? But I mean, it goes back to what Jackie was mentioning earlier when it comes to the scoring bit. You need someone other than Nathan McKinnon and Martin H's to score goals for you, and they traded away one of them. I'm not saying that he's the reason why the Avalanche have quote unquote plummeted, because they haven't, for one. And 2, there was always going to be that problem, even if Rantanen was still with the Avalanche. Right. So the really interesting thing, and I know you mentioned the other Evan Rowell in his article. He had a really good piece about kind of how this team isn't the same as they once were. And I would agree with that. I think that I've kind of had that sentiment for a little bit now, but was thinking, oh, you know, it'll turn around once you know, X, Y, Z come together, but they're just not coming together. So now you kind of have to look at it more internally, and you kind of have to, I guess, self-reflect, for lack of a better term, if you're the Avalanche, and see where do we go forward from this, right? And that's what I'm really interested in now, not only in this, you know, trade deadline trade deadline that's coming up, but more so in the offseason. How are they going to rectify this going forward? Because I don't think there's a ton that they can do at the deadline, because they've already made a whole bunch of moves, and there's just options are limited, right? More will open up in the summer, and that will be the most interesting time, I think, to watch.
I think part of your question is like, why after a break is it like this? And I think it's because just so many moving parts. I just think this team lacks cohesion, and they lack it because they've played 43 players at this point, and it might be more. So I just think they don't have a lot to fall back on. They do always look better after a practice and stuff, and they kind of come together a little bit better, but it is something of a pattern. Like Evan said, they've had bad stretches after a break. I think maybe this upcoming homestand will help mitigate that, so where they don't go on a skid. But I really do think that another part of this, like, as much as I've been saying, I just don't think the roster is talented enough. It's just, at what point are you doing more harm than good making all these changes? Do they even know each other? They don't even know about playing with each other's tendencies, who fits best where. And then you have a 2-week break, and you're trying to put it all back together in a couple days, when that's something they have to work on. And I don't know if they're going to be able to find it when you have a new lineup constantly because of it.
Yeah, totally. And that's an interesting thing to consider when we get into our deadline approach segment, because I think that's something you have to really think about in this context. But Brandon, I'm curious, in terms of people coming and going and the cast changing left and right, no one knows that more than an AHL team and the Colorado Eagles. I mean, the cast of characters changes from one weekend to the next almost every time. Can you give us the Eagles scoop from your takeaway article this week? And then Ezra, I'm going to circle back to you for our transition into the deadline talk. Okay.
Well, they had to play without McDonald on one game because of the whole Four Nations thing. Because McDonald got pulled up and unofficially pulled up. There's nothing put in the
I
transaction.
still love to know how they pulled that one off.
Yeah. It's same thing with Amat. He unofficially got called up, but Amat made it on the trip,
Right.
And but I'm still shocked that they got away with pulling McDonald out of the lineup and pulling him to Denver for a game. And I mean, we're talking the team's top scorer and the AHL defensive score leading to scorer. So it's like you guys pulled him for in practice.
Yeah, yeah, because he didn't play, correct?
No, he did not. So I know I'm going to get a buzz, but I mean,
you knew where I was headed with that.
Yeah, it upsets me, and more in the fact that yes, I get a buzz, but it's the fact that it hurts both teams.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, I get it; those guys need a rest, but at least play the ones that you're pulling up.
Mm-hmm. So how do you? Sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so how do you feel about kind of what you did see from the Avalanche in those two games, and compared to kind of what Evan and Jackie saw?
They were still tired.
Yeah.
And they're still exhausted, and they're still trying to catch up, and they're lacking chemistry, and I mean they're being tossed around in the Bednar blender so much that they don't know what they're doing, and the only real consistent line now is the top three.
Yeah,
if even that. And because we're seeing Lehkonen and we're going to see Nichushkin probably drop in onto the top line eventually in the next few games.
Yeah.
So I know I'm getting like a little
fired up. Maybe I like
a little fired up, but I mean, come on! It's like use your freaking brain a little bit, guys. It's like if you're going to pull guys up from the AHL and hurt the AHL team in the process, use them.
Yeah.
But they never cared. The AHL exists solely to serve the NHL. And
I get it. But when you're when your AHL team is leading the division and leading the conference and is fourth in the they were until like last night, but exiting their games for the weekend, they were leading the division and leading the conference and fourth in the league.
Yeah.
And then you pull a stunt like that to hurt valuable points that are going to pay off in the end. There's no sense in it.
Yeah. I tend to agree with that because it just doesn't help anyone to have him doing nothing in Denver.
Yeah.
And that's as pretty much as simple as we are putting this trade deadline approach segment on an absolute T right now because Ezra, I really loved what you had to say in our roundtable, and specifically, I thought you were correct about what you said in terms of your final thoughts on the Mikko Rantanen deal, where you mentioned really whether or not the Avs come out on the good side of this deal remains to be seen in terms of how they use the assets that they acquired in the trade, and of course, with the cap space, what little cap space was created from the deal. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and kind of tell me what that sort of looks like to you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the roster as it is right now is a roster with holes, and those holes are, obviously, but those holes are the kind of thing that are patchable in a short-term way or a long-term way. And I think, the extra space and caps and picks that they have from this deal should theoretically allow them to fill those holes and in my opinion, they should be looking towards, not just this season, but a longer term fit for somebody to upgrade the team. And I think it's really clear where that upgrade needs to come. In my opinion, it is the second pair partner for Sam Girard, who brings a little grit and a little size, who's better than Josh Manson. That frankly, better and younger.
And available, yeah.
And available. And I think there's a really, really obvious candidate. And I don't know how affordable he is, but should I say it now or save it?
No, go ahead, say it.
Jones.
Go ahead. It's a good tease.
It's Keandre Miller. I think if New York is about to blow things up and they are stupid enough to move on from him, he has to be the Avs target.
I like it.
He's big. He's mean. He's a great skater. There just aren't, that combination doesn't exist very often. And man, I think he would just be phenomenal in an Avs uniform.
I love
and
it.
It doesn't hurt that he went to Wisconsin.
I was gonna say,
but God, he's wonderful. He's a good player.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure he's a Badger if I had to guess. But no, I like that. That's a good tease into our trade deadline. We're gonna spin the wheel today. I don't think Keandre is even on the wheel, so I'll add him. But it's good that you touched on him now. But this is a good
on trade boards right now, but he was talked about earlier in the season. So
fair enough.
Keeping the hope alive.
Fair enough. Well, let's get into what the Avalanche, in our opinion, what the Avalanche should do at the deadline. And folks, if you're enjoying this programming, please head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, your preferred podcast platform. We should be on there. This is our 94th episode ever. We also have some bonus episodes, and everything is available over there. You can kind of follow along with the Avalanche chronologically since pretty much like 2.5 years ago. So that's where we're at right now. But let's talk. I sent out a poll. This is how I'm going to pitch this to you guys. I sent out a poll yesterday, basically just asking my followers, hey, what do you guys think the Avalanche should do at the deadline? Should they be A, buyers, or B, sellers? I was kind of surprised by the results. I'll tell you now, out of 743 votes, 77% of them said that they believe the Colorado Avalanche should be buyers at the deadline. I forward that question on to the four of you, and I'll start with you, Jackie. Buyers or sellers at the deadline for the Avalanche?
Okay, I'll preface this. I'll get to the answer, though. I hate the concept of it, first of all. Like, I just think it's so stupid that you have to be one or the other. Like, you should always be buying and selling. You should be trying to improve. That should be the goal. You should always be trying to trim the fat and looking for opportunities. I remember when Vancouver traded for Hronek like 2 years ago, and everyone was like, the rebuilding, that's so stupid. Why are you buying? Why are you getting in a player? Well, look, he helped them. So it's just, for me, it's just such a stupid concept. And that if you're a quote unquote seller, it means like you're giving up. You're giving up on the season. You know you're not going to win the cup. You're just like you're just waving the white flag. And I don't think that's the case either. I think if you have assets to sell, you should sell. Now, getting to the Avs, they don't have assets to sell. So it's going to be pretty tough for them to be sellers, even though I think they should sell some guys off. But the pieces they're going to sell off are like Malinsky, maybe Shillington if they can find a sucker. And those are their selling assets. But should they be buying? Not really either. Like, rentals is not what this team needs. If there is a good opportunity for a decent young player, like we always hear, oh, but Lehkonen was a great rental for them. He was an RFA. He wasn't even an actual rental. So
he's going to say, oh, he's still here.
Yes, because he was an RFA. Exactly. He wasn't a UFA.
Yeah, I think never had the intention to sign him the entire time.
Exactly.
Exactly. And they had that safety net of, well, he's an RFA. He's not just going to walk.
Right.
So I still would say the Avs really haven't had great rentals. Yes, they kept Josh Manson, but that's a whole nother topip. But still, they've never done a good job getting rentals. And I don't think that this is the year it's going to start. But the problem is getting a bigger piece, getting a longer term piece, somebody young, either with a decent contract or an RFA. It's a hard move to make. It's hard to find those pieces. And if the opportunity presents themselves to get one of those in, then it could be a smart move. But I think by and large, they should just sit out. They're done. They should be done. They've made 4 trades during this season. It's enough. They've already played 43 different players. I don't think a rental defenseman and maybe somebody that takes faceoffs and PKs is going to change what this team does, except for just burn more assets.
So
and
I should
keep
have
them
put a
further away from being a real contender again.
Yeah. So I should have put a third option in there that said just
Dude,
viewers.
Just sit out.
Yeah. Well, I hear that and I agree with you. I mean, there's really it's not black and white in terms of this, but I'll qualify it just to satisfy that point because I think you have a good point there. Let's say where their strategy should be leaning, I guess, towards more of a selling or more of a buying. Evan, I'll forward the question on to you. Buyers or sellers, and why?
See, my heart says one thing and my head says another. And
So it goes.
Exactly. Because the head says, I guess, quote unquote sellers. Because I'm kind of in the same boat of Jackie, is like, I don't really think you can be labeled like fully one or fully the other. But I still think that deep down that the Avalanche and the front office in particular believe that they can compete. So they think they're going to find the magic horseshoe and it's going to take them wherever, right? And I mean, you're a hockey team, you're sitting in a playoff spot, all things considered, from where the start of the year, where you started at, not bad, I think. And so I think that they're going to buy. I guess if you want to put them in that category, they are going to buy. They are going to focus on adding players because they've seen that Jesus Christ, English. you have seen that the front office is not hesitant to make moves, right?
Totally.
And I think that is something that they are going to ponder and they're going to put to use, again in this next, I guess, 10 days or so before the deadline. I don't see why you would do that.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Ezra, I feel like I know your answer, and you've kind of pointed towards it already. But you mentioned in the roundtable that I've referenced already a couple of times that anytime you have Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon, you're trying to win the cup. So does that pretty much contextualize why, to you, they should be buyers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think that there's so much potential with this team, even as much as the secondary scoring is dried up. If this team is in the playoffs with a healthy top end, there's not a lot of teams that can compete with it. I know the downgrade from Rantanen to Natchez feels like that changes things, but to me, it doesn't at all. That's still your third best player is very, very, very good. So to me, it's that changes nothing. And yeah, I think it's a simple situation, really. The Avs defense isn't as good as it used to be. Upgrade that, and everything else will work.
But couldn't you make the same argument for like Pittsburgh? Anytime you have Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin,
I would.
You should be trying to go for the cup.
Those guys are 36 and 38.
Yeah. But Pittsburgh has Ryan Graves.
My response to that would be, I do think that about Pittsburgh, but I think that the reaction they should have to that is trading Sidney Crosby, because the person who should be most worried about winning a Stanley Cup is Sidney Crosby. So it's like,
so would Sidney Crosby pick a team that's fourth in their division?
No, I'm not saying to the Avalanche. What I'm saying in particular is that, to your example, where if the Penguins should be trying to be buyers, I don't think so. I think that because Sidney Crosby is on their team and they know they're not going to compete for a cup, they should be selling him. And that to whomever would be willing to pay an appropriate cost. But they aren't doing that. And to me, that's doing a disservice to them still, because they have this valuable asset. Somebody, I think in a lot of people's minds, if they any team acquired Sidney Crosby, they would immediately feel like, oh, it's time, we're going to win a cup this year. And that's in and of itself points to the sort of value that a Sidney Crosby brings to the table. So
I think there was a model in the Athletic where if somebody even, let's say, could bring in McDavid at the deadline, he himself is only worth like 3 wins.
Yeah.
So I even one player doesn't move the needle that much.
I mean, maybe literally, but I think maybe in terms of the public perspective, like the public opinion of the situation, if the Avs traded for Sidney Crosby today, everyone would go to Twitter, and even people who aren't Avs fans would say Colorado Avalanche are going to win the cup in 2025. Am I wrong?
I'd rather they actually did it on the ice. But, what happens on X happens on X. But I will say, like when Pittsburgh had the two of the best, 4 or 5 players in the world on their roster, they went for it every year. And Colorado's in that situation now, and they should be doing that now. However you want to rank McKinnon versus McDavid or McCarr versus Quinn Hughes, they have two of the best 2 players at their position in the league. I would say you have a very good case for the best 2 players in the league. So there's no reason not to be putting those 2 players in the best situation to win that you possibly can every year.
But isn't building a competent team for the next rest of the decade more important than instant gratification and hoping that you roll the dice and get a miracle this year?
Player only for this year. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying you can't let this year pass you by if you think there's somebody who can join this team for the next couple years and make a big difference.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, and Crosby, like just getting back to the Crosby example, he's signed. So he's not somebody who's going to need a contract, which actually, in my opinion, makes him a more viable possibility. The only way this happens is if he says so. And I think if he went to Pittsburgh and said, all right, I think I'm cool with it, they would do it. I just think that hasn't happened yet because all of his heroes played for one franchise. And I think that means something to these guys. And I think it means something to Sidney Crosby. The question is, for me, does the 4 nations competition and how fun that was change his viewpoint in terms of that? I don't know that it does. He might have just got his little taste and he's good until 2026 and he'll run it back with Team Canada again. I just don't know if Sidney can get by on just getting his high level of play itch from international play. And the more he gets a taste of it from that, the more unattractive missing the playoffs again will feel to him. But I don't want to get going down too far that rabbit hole. Brennan, buyers or sellers at the deadline if you're the Avalanche?
There's not much to sell unless you go really deep into the prospect pool. As good as anyone that they're not getting rid of Richie.
Right.
And knock on wood when you say that. Don't give them a hold my beer moment. Don't put that out there.
I'll eat my foot if that happens.
Okay.
I will literally saw it off. And
it's a terrible idea, but we have seen that is not enough to stop them. So.
No.
Yeah, but you get my point. It's like I will reenact the ending scene from Saw if that were to happen. But
sorry, go ahead, Brennan.
No, go ahead.
Well, I just thinking about the prospects that they've traded away recently. Like, were they wrong?
No,
not necessarily on the prospects.
The
only ones I think that they're going to get rid of would be. Like in the sense that I don't think they're gonna re-sign Foodie, in my personal opinion. And Foodie's, he's
another one I should add.
He's okay, but I mean he's an RFA this coming summer, and I don't think they'll qualify him. That's just my personal opinion. So I think they'll use him as trade bait.
I don't think he's got much value. Like it's
he's got something. Like he's better than nothing, and and then possibly Oscar. That's maybe the only things that we could really offer on the tables in terms of prospects.
I would say Goliath is probably maybe their best.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm talking already in the States.
Well, if you're already in the AHL, every second that goes by, you get devalued. So, you really are not looking at the AHL for assets that move the needle because that the ship already sailed. So you have to look at assets that are not in the AHL if you think you're going to trade anything for what you want at the deadline.
Yeah, and then and then anyone that's on the Avs, I'd say try your darndest to move Wood, and try your darndest to get who else was I thinking?
Manson.
Manson's not going anywhere, unfortunately.
Availability is important.
So it's important to other teams too.
Yeah, this is a great segue. Let's spin the flipping wheel. because I want to add some context to our wheel this year. I've
And
put in
Sage, I like Taze, so Taze isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, no, Taze is not getting traded. I hope not anyway. I said that about Rantanen. But back to my wheel. So I've added some picks in there that the Avs have, and I've added Avs players. So if we land on an Avs player, we'll talk about how viable we think it is that they're traded, what sort of we would want that package to look like, etc. Then there's guys otherwise whom the Avs could trade for. Same sort of thing, whether or not we think it's realistic, and kind of our overall take on that. So let's spin the wheel for the
You
first
got Big
time,
Z
baby.
in there. Jeez.
I do. I got Big Z. I got some funny ones in there. I did
There are
still a
some
little
good
bit.
ones.
I did still a little bit from the bingo card, which we'll talk about after we spin the wheel, Jackie.
Okay.
But I wanted to just give you guys a little thing. Ryan O'Reilly might be on there. Nikita Zadorov, as you mentioned, is on there. Bowen
God.
Byram might be on there. Mikko Rantanen might also be on there. So
Bring back Bo.
let's spin that trade wheel, baby. Here we go.
It's going to be hilarious if it lands on like Mikko Rantanen. Oh, it almost did.
Oh, it's Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc Foudy.
I told you.
So we can talk about Jean-Luc Foudy real quick. Brandon, you just touched on that. But someone else, what do you want that package to look like if the Avs do indeed move on from Jean-Luc Foudy?
Oh,
I don't even know.
Maybe it wouldn't be a package. It might be as part of a package for something else. But
if they traded him straight up and they got more better than a 5th round pick, that'd be a win. But I think he would be packaged in with something else where some other team is like, oh, actually, we do like that kid.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's a sweetener you want? Okay, great. And they throw him in. I don't think there's a lot of value there.
Okay.
I'd agree with that. It'd be like a Giovanni Smith when he came over with Blackwood.
No, he's
Oh,
not.
no.
Smith
Giovanni
is not
Smith
going
level.
anywhere, unfortunately.
No,
And
I'm not saying Giovanni Smith is getting traded. I'm saying it would be like the Blackwood trade.
Yeah,
No,
I
that-
get what you mean, but like Smith is getting so so healthy
He-
scratched.
He doesn't
He
even
is
play
like
for the
almost
Eagles.
ECHL scratched.
Wow.
Yeah. No,
Well-
that's different
well,
because he's an established NHLer who was, or like an established person who everyone knew what his ceiling was, who was a contract just to offset a contract. But
Yeah.
Foudy, I think, would be to a team that sees something in him and wants to.
I like him as a
Good
sweetener,
enough,
like you mentioned.
And I think honestly he would end up going to somewhere that's in the Pacific Division AHL wise, which is primarily the Pacific Division for the NHL. So I think again that's where he'll end up, is because that's a lot of teams that the Eagles play, because they see them the most.
Yeah.
Those scouts see him the most. So
But 5 years in the AHL, you don't have value.
yeah,
Like every team has a guy like him. Every team has
well,
prospects that have been in the AHL too
Well,
long.
let's-
It's
it
just
doesn't help that he's also been like injured for 3 out of those 5.
Okay, back to the availability point, right? Yeah. Well, let's spin it again because I feel like that one was kind of fun, but we also had literally just talked about it. So let's see what we got now.
Middle stat.
Oh my God, it's gonna
Ryan
do it.
O'Reilly.
ROR.
It is
The
ROR.
factor.
I think we talked about him last year too, on this
We did.
segment, which is funny.
Well, I'll start. I'll make
Yeah.
it brief. I think you have to take it serious just because how many times they've traded with Nashville. The money, like I think he signed 2 more years, so that's going to be part of it. I don't know. I go back and forth thinking: is he washed up? Can he still provide something? I think they would kick the tires on it. I bet it is something they're discussing. It's just a matter of, how do you make the money work? Because I don't think they would take him at straight up face value. So is this where you can dump a Miles Wood, which I think is like not going to happen? But
See.
if
30
you could do
34
something
years.
like that,
I like that.
is that a
Jackie.
deal that they could make?
4.5 UFA and 27-28.
Yeah, 2 years left, 4.5 AAV, 51 games this year, 14 goals, 20, 34 points. Coincidentally, he's also 34 years old. My concern is the play style, the fit. I know that Ryan O'Reilly, in terms of speed, has never really fit any team's play style or fit. And that's kind of why he's always been such an anomaly. I just don't know at this stage in his career if it works the same for him here in Colorado. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Go ahead, Brennan.
Oh, no, go ahead. Make your point. I'll go next.
I was just going to say speed is a major factor in how the Avalanche like to play, but at the same time, there's a lack of defensive, there's a lack of two-way centers, right? There's two centers who play one way and there's two centers who play the other way. There's no one who does both, and Ryan O'Reilly definitely brings a high level of defensive acumen and a decent level of offensive upside. That is not a lot of people on the market have that. So I do think there's an argument for overlooking the speed and seeing if it can work. The problem is you're not seeing if it works for a short time. You're seeing if it works for 2 more years. And, I do think that the Avs' efforts, other than at Wedgwood, but their efforts in all these trades have been to get a little younger. That gives me pause too.
So he's got
over
just over 1,100 game career. He's got a 55.7 face-off win percentage, and we all know that's where the Avs lack. He's a good penalty killer. He's a good two-way defenseman, and he's awesome at the takeaways. And not to mention, he's a great locker room guy.
Sure. He's great buddies with McKinnon, as we know as well. So that's
He's one of my all-time favorite players.
He really is also mine. I was very hurt by how that went for him in his ending here in Colorado. Yeah. That would go a long way to mending my feelings about that situation. We got a question here from Sage Walker. Sage, thank you so much for tuning in and participating. If you got a guy like ROR or Shen, no thanks. Do you think it would be a bigger message towards Landeskog's return? Shen, absolutely. We would know. I don't know that we're going to learn much from the deadline as it pertains to Gabriel Landeskog. I think we'll learn about that as to whether or not he plays in the playoffs. And then if he doesn't, I think he probably packs it in. Evan, what you got?
I was going to say, I think this deadline will tell what happens with Landeskog, because the longer this has gone on with the whole situation, the less and less confident it's been. And most recently, I look at Colleen Flynn with Colorado Hockey Now. She asked Bednar about it right after the break, and Bednar hinted that he might not even play this year. I'd have to go pull up the quote, but that was the first time this entire year where it's been
I definitely felt like the vibe was changed a little bit. They were BSing so much before the break. I thought they would continue the BS until the deadline, but definitely his whole I don't remember the exact words of it, but it was just a little bit more measured for sure. Yeah, but I don't think the deadline is. They've already spent the money. They already spent the money when they got Blackwood, and they don't have $7 million cap space. They're already over that. So I don't even see there's any possible way he can come back in this regular season. You'd have to add nothing at the deadline. You'd have to send out money just to have him come back. The playoffs is where the grand miracle could happen because it has no financial impact. Then he truly can just show up one day and say, I'm playing. But other than that, it just the deadline, the ship already sailed, and I think it sailed probably in November.
Sorry, I had to cough.
Brandon, you have a little Kucherov in your throat over there. What's going on?
I guess to actually touch on Ryan O'Reilly itself, because he was a year before I really started digging in with the Avalanche and knowing things. I remember watching him 12, 13 years old in the playoff series against the Wild. That was a lot of fun. But then outside of that, I couldn't tell you too much about him. But it is, I think it's already been touched on that it's kind of going in the opposite direction of where the Avalanche are going in terms of trying to get younger and whatnot. But we've also seen how trying to get younger has not helped them out. Casey Middlestat. So I mean, you could, I guess, if you wanted to. I wouldn't be opposed to it. but you'd have to find a way to make that work financially, and that might mean moving Casey Middlestat.
Well, and I think someone like Ryan O'Reilly, he's extremely loyal to whatever team he's on. And because I remember interviewing.
Oh, really?
Him. Well, like no, seriously, I remember interviewing him when he was with the Blues, and like we were all asking him about, hey, you've been mentioned in several trades and things like that, and he's like, no, I am staying in St. Louis. What do you know?
Not loyal enough to take.
He knows how
cut.
to tell a good story.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
he knows what to say.
In a parallel universe, he stays. The Avs win a cup sooner because we're not asking the 2C question, bro.
Yeah, I think he would be slotted in as 2C at the highest, possibly 3C. He'd be a grinder, and because that's what he's good at.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that his neutral zone play is outstanding, and so I think honestly he'd be a good choice. Personally, I may be biased because I always loved Ryan O'Reilly, and the fact that he's played with 3 broken ribs in the Stanley Cup playoff.
Conn Smythe winner. That goes
exactly. You can only have multiple Conn Smythe runners on a team, right?
Yeah, not a big deal. Well, let's feel one last time, because the more names we talk about, the more likely we are to have content before the Avs trade or don't trade for them, and we can talk about it and flip it and all that fun stuff. So, one last spin of the target wheel.
I can't hear him.
I was going to say, by the way, you sound like you are underwater and we cannot see it, but I'm just going to call the shot now that it's going to be Mikko Rantanen because the wheel's listening to us.
Well, we can't trade for Mikko Rantanen according to Vaguely Sober.
I know.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now? Because of the salary retention.
Yep.
You can't retain and then have the player go back.
Miles Wood.
Jeez.
So
I'll just start it briefly. There's a reason why they needed him so bad that they gave him a 6-year deal. Like, they loved whatever it is. So you have to start from the perspective of the organization was deeply in love with him. Are they still? I mean, the guy has 3 points this year. So, and then that's the other thing is, are they willing to cut bait and move him? Can you move him with 4 more years left?
And a bad back.
It's hard to move term in this league. And then the other thing is, what is his actual value? Does he just have straight up negative value? Like, is it going to be a cap dump? And then you're not getting better. You have to spend assets just to get rid of the guy. So I don't see it happening. If they can bake it into some deal, good luck. But I pretty much expect to see Miles Wood on this team for several more years.
I'm currently shocked because I had no idea he only had 3 points in 25 games. Like, that's gone way under the radar because of his unavailability, which is a whole nother strike against him. Wow. Yeah, I like a lot of these guys we talked about what in terms of like the Avs not having assets, the ones that they do, they're not very attractive. And like you said, Brendan, how likely are you to get rid of a guy with back issues, a long-term contract, 3 points in 25 games? We want to talk about, you bring in guys to have career years in Colorado. Not if you're Miles Wood, apparently. And so I that's really concerning for me.
Bringing Curtis McDermott at that point, come on.
Holy moly, that's pretty. Ezra says no.
I mean, look, Miles Wood has not scored. That is a problem. He has been out of the lineup a lot. That's arguably a problem.
Yeah.
But he is a much better player than
I know, but you get my point. If he's not gonna score, and you're gonna have a warm body out there, and he's only playing like 8 to 9 minutes a game.
Yeah,
he's playing like 11. I don't think he's just a warm body. I don't. Look, I'm not going to be the strongest Miles Wood defender, but I will come from another perspective here and just say he brings something to the lineup that nobody else is doing.
That's fair.
He forechecks super hard. He brings the physicality. I don't love him stupidly spearing a guy in the balls and getting kicked out of the game, but he does a little bit of that sandpaper that teams do genuinely need. You need it to be sandpaper that contributes in another way. You need it to be sandpaper that also scores. So he has to solve that problem, but he is the only guy bringing this. Well, that's not true. He's one of two guys bringing this. Ross Colton is as well, but he needs to stop doing it and start scoring because that's what he's being
again.
What happened to the Roaring 20s line, man?
Well, they've been broken up, first off.
But I mean,
I would like to see Colton back at center, personally. I'm tired of this.
Yes. Ross Colton is a center, and he played best when he was a center. And I believe he was playing center in Tampa.
He was playing 2C.
No, when he was in Tampa, he was playing center, and that he was playing his best hockey in Tampa. He was playing center, and I think he was playing center when he won the Stanley Cup game.
He was playing center to start the season when he was doing very well for the.
I know. But
his goal scoring tear here did come on McKinnon's wing, so I get why they were like, "Oh, he's playing well at wing," but man, that's McKinnon's wing. That's a different thing. Okay, it's not Parker Kelly's wing. Yeah. It's not as much as I like Jack Drury, and I do. It's not Jack Drury's wing. It's a different thing. You need Colton to be contributing as a $4 million player, and that happens at the center of the ice.
And the other crazy thing is, I believe he has 3 assists. You also look at if you look at the Avs, their production, it is kind of crazy. Like Lehkonen doesn't have many assists, Nichushkin doesn't. Colton doesn't. I mean, 3 assists for somebody that has played with a lot of the better players, has played at center at some point. So there's definitely, I just think there's something fundamentally broken about how this offense works together, because there's just so much deficit in different parts.
I'm going to tell you this. Ross Colton has 4 points since the new year started. He hasn't scored a point in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
There he goes underwater
9,
again.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Ross Colton hasn't scored a point in 15 straight games.
And that's when they put together that line with Drury, right? I would say Cohen.
Yep.
Generally coincides with him being on that line.
Crazy. Well,
looking at it more in depth is just like it's just
the scoring thing is an issue. It's a real problem. It's a real problem. A problem that goes away if all of a sudden it goes away in the playoffs. But as we sit right now, there's something to worry about.
It doesn't help that Colton is on the third line, and I even mentioned it, I think, towards the beginning of the year. The higher you put Colton,
I think he gets more motivated. Like, I think when he played with McKinnon, there was like a spark in his step. You see it. He's a guy that's
going to do that to anyone.
Well, sure, but I'm just saying, not just that, but like last year when he was moved, because he was like the 2C before they got Middlestat, and I think that when they put him back on the third line, like he was definitely way mopier. I think, yes, anybody would be excited, but I think him in particular gets that motivation when he is higher in the lineup.
Middlestat, it's been 5 whole games since a point. Like this, it's a thing. It's a thing. And I just hope that the Avs find a way to figure it out. That's kind of where we're at right now. But let's talk about bold predictions. We didn't have very many last week. We had some absentees for other reasons. Totally fine. Life happens. What are you going to do? Ezra, you were not here to make a bold prediction last week. Evan, you also were not, but you made one the week before that was still technically relevant last week, which was that the Avs would make a deal over the break. Unfortunately, that didn't happen in the 2 weeks we gave you. So you might as well get a double buzz, but I'm not going to be that mean. I said that Makar would score the game tying goal. He did not, although he was the distractor on the game winning goal for McDavid. That was a set play with him and Marner and McDavid there, and they ran it to perfection to get, unfortunately, McDavid the golden goal, which, Jackie, your bold prediction was that would be Nathan McKinnon. So, unfortunately, I have to buzz you. And Brennan,
Can I get half a ding for Malinsky finally scoring a goal?
Yes, let's do that. There's that ding. Half a ding for Jackie. The Sam goal finally happened. And Brennan, you alluded to this earlier. You had McDonald slotting back into the Avalanche lineup. Unfortunately, he was in Denver for no absolute reason. And that did not happen. So I'm going to run the bold prediction track. Folks, if you're listening and you want to give your bold predictions in the comments, do so right now. And the four of you, I will expect you to be ready on the other side.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I call that bold talk.
All right. Ezra, let's start with you, my friend.
All right. I'm going to go real bold. I don't think the Avs lose between now and our next show.
That's the kind of bold prediction I love, baby. Avs.
I'm going to back it up with a little bit of a reasoning. Okay. The New Jersey game is going to be a bounce back. That's a good team that they have to stand up and defend home ice against. Minnesota is a rivalry game. Pittsburgh is bad. San Jose is bad. I don't know if we'll get to San Jose, but that's my reasoning. And look, I know you can say, hey, Nashville and St. Louis are bad. They didn't beat them. Shut up.
Now that is what I'm talking about. That's a measured response right there. Shut up. Quit bringing it up, all right? No, I like that. I like the way you've laid it out, too. I like New Jersey being a bounce-back game. I like beating the Wild because they're rivals, and Pittsburgh sucks.
The Wild are so hurt, too. I mean, Joel Eriksson just went down. It's crazy.
I think if I was a Wild fan, I might be more mad than I am now as an Avs fan because they were looking like they were going to shock the world and had a good roster, better one than most people thought. And then it just the wheels started falling off in terms of injuries. We've been there before, though, Jackie, haven't we? What do you got for me this week, Jackie?
So are we still doing our trade bold prediction after our Avs-ish bold prediction?
Yeah, we'll circle back to that after.
Okay, so this is just like the Avs.
And then we'll close with your bingo card. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, I said a little bit earlier, I do think that if anybody is primed for an upward regression, it's McKinnon. Okay. So I'll say that he's going to have two 2-goal games before the trade deadline. So I don't know when our next show is, but it's only 4 games. So between now and then, I do think they're going to play better at home. I mean, this Jekyll and Hyde team, they are going to string some wins together, and it's going to, we're going to be back into the other narrative of like, oh, we're going to catch Winnipeg and this team's great. So I do think they're primed for a little bit of an upswing, and I think McKinnon, really, if they have an upswing, it's because of McKinnon, right? So
totally,
I think he's going to have 2-goal games upcoming before the deadline.
Games before the deadline. Okay.
Yes.
I got you down. Another one that I would love to see. Evan, are you going to follow the feeling of this is kind of like a bold hopes this week? What are you thinking?
It's actually funny because I am very much the opposite.
Bold pessimism for you.
I think that
that's my title.
I'm going to be the complete opposite of Ezra. I don't think the Avs win before our next show.
That shows you the
give
state of affairs.
Give me the booze all you want.
Wow, then people will be like sell everything.
Yeah. Wow.
Because people are like, fire Bednar now. It's like
that's for one. That's crazy. 2, C-Mac, fire C-Mac. Yeah,
not as crazy.
Not as crazy, but still a little crazy.
I
think last year's East Coast road trip is just haunting me still. I'm happy that at least McKinnon, Makar, Taves, obviously they got their rest today. Brennan gave me a scare when he said that they weren't there. And I was like, oh crap! What the heck is going on?
I'm sorry, I forgot.
They're gonna rest so much down the stretch, though. I bet they will have 5 practices before the end of the year.
There'll be a lot of optionals. I'm
guessing. Man, it says so much about the current state of affairs that in 1 week we have the Avs winning the whole week and the Avs losing the whole week in our bold prediction segment.
We definitely don't have time to get into the Bednar thing, but I do think it is a topic we should explore at some point because...
Well, if Evan's bold prediction is correct, we'll definitely do that next
and that'll be explored sooner than later.
Exactly. Well, Brennan, what you got for me this week?
Ty Felber goal this weekend. He only has 1 goal in 13 games.
Cool. For the Eagles.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
Oh,
time
he's not gonna get
some
called
time
up.
in Utah then.
It's like, so the bold prediction is that he'll come up and he'll score.
No.
Okay.
No.
That is indeed bold. My bold prediction is that Marty Necas will get his first hat trick as a Colorado Avalanche this week.
Why did I just know that was going to be your bold prediction?
Right.
I guess I'm
just
curious
knew
how
it.
many
Can
career
I
hat
be-
tricks does he have? Does he have
I'm gonna
any?
be. Oh,
Find
let
out.
me see. I'm gonna be fully transparent with you guys. When I think the Avs need a lift, I just boldly predict that Mikko Rantanen is gonna score a hat trick, and he's not here no more. So Marty, step on up to the plate, brother. It's your job now.
I mean, McKinnon might do it. Like I said, I
He
think
has
he's...
one, and it was
Okay.
against the Avalanche.
Oh my god.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, that's right. Didn't he complete it in overtime? To win?
Yes.
It was
Yeah.
this year, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
also Drury, before he came here, his last assist and last goal were against the Avs in different games.
Okay.
No, sorry, it wasn't overtime. He had 3 goals in the first period.
Oh well, there you have
that
it.
Was it this year?
It was February 8th, 2024.
Okay.
Wow. So
But
that's like-
I think he also scored against the Avs when they played in November.
Yeah, he did. I think he might have actually. That might be where he scored the game winner, but it wasn't as part of a hat trick. Okay, so
That should be like the task next year. Just keep track of like every other non-star for the other team that has scored against the Avs, and
see
you
if they're
might
going to trade.
get to their targets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's circle back to the top of the list now that we've all given ours. And Ezra, I want your most likely trade target for the Avalanche or acquisition, and then I want your, as you put it, pie in the sky target.
Okay. Most likely, I don't know if most likely really applies here, but I'm going to say who
Realistic?
I had.
Yeah.
Most like a realistic option. Morgan Geekie jumps out to me as a guy Boston might sell if they think they're done with. And I do think the Avs are looking at middle 6 forwards, and I really like Morgan Geekie. He brings more offense than most of the guys here right now, but still with some defense and effort that matches what Colorado tends to look for. Not the best skater, pretty good. Maybe he's not the most. I don't know. There's a chance that Boston just extends him and he's not even in the conversation. But if they are looking to sell pieces, I think he'd be much more interesting to me than Brad Marchand or something. Ideally, the Avs are targeting defense, though. That's what I want. I mentioned him earlier. Keandre Miller is my pie in the sky, but I have a pie in the sky full trade here. It is, and it's real pie in the sky because this guy has a no trade clause. But it is Keandre Miller and Vincent Trocheck for Colton, Guyayev, and 2 second-round picks with Shillington thrown in to make some money work.
That'd be a blockbuster, sort of. Just in the amount of pieces exchanged, that would be the blockbuster.
I think it might be
that got me excited.
I think I might not have valued. I think I might need to throw in more value to make New York actually.
Like, are we trying to purge the American kids to get some more?
Yeah. Well, you could get rid of one of the seconds and do the 2026 first, and then I think but I don't know if you want to do that.
I didn't
or
want
both
to do
the
that.
seconds.
This might be a case where I'm overvaluing our prospect in Guyayev, but I don't know. I just think if they are willing to move on from Miller, they have to try to get him. And then Trocheck seems like the kind of guy that would.
I dig that.
JT Miller now in the fold and Mika Zibanejad kind of untradeable. It might make sense for New York to move on from.
I like it. All right, Keandre Miller is your pie in the sky. Jackie, what are your 2?
Okay, so the realistic one I think is David Savard. I think the Avs definitely want him if they can get him. We know that right-handed, big, strong veteran won the cup, right? Those are all very, very desirable pieces at the deadline. So they might not have the best offer, but I think he's catnip to them. If we don't
He's a
remember, Columbus
Canadian.
drafted him, and he played in the AHL when Bednar was assistant. So he's a Bednar guy. I just think just ticks all the boxes they're looking for. We would like somebody younger. We would like somebody more long term, better. But this might be what they can get. So I don't know if they could do it for a second, or I could also see Malinsky because he's also right-handed. So you flip him to Montreal, give someone to play the rest of the season.
I'd hate that.
But I 100% think this is something the Avs would do. If they could do it for Malinsky and one of their fourths, I think they'd love that. But that's probably not the best offer. They might have to bump it up to a
34
second.
years old, 50 games this season, 10 points. I mean, obviously he's a defender, but I think it's safe to say his best years are behind him. But true rental, definitely the depth defender that we've seen the Avs get almost every year at the deadline. So I'm with you in terms of it being like a kind of fitting the pattern of what the Avs do at the deadline. But what about your ideal trade acquisition?
All right, let's bring the missing piece back home. Let's go to Buffalo. Undo what they did last year. Let's do it on the anniversary to make it even better on the 6th and undo the trade. But I know that everyone's going to say, but the Avs still need a center. Well, you get Ryan McLeod back in the package. So if you can give them Middlestat and Malinsky, flip them for Byram and Ryan McLeod, who I think would fit with the Avs really well. If you need to add a pick to make the value work, maybe add one of those seconds. That is my pie in the sky trade.
Love it. Oh, I was hoping we would land on Bowen Byram in our trade wheel today, because that, much like the Mikko Rantanen thing, obviously we've been informed, I think, by Vaguely Sober that can't be a thing because of the retention. But Bowen Byram, that's not the case. And to reunite with him, I think, Jackie, you were onto something a long time ago in terms of the defense giving the Avalanche their competitive advantage, and the youthfulness of that defense being key to that. And that just doesn't feel like it's the same anymore. So I love that. Bowen Byram as your pie in the sky. Evan, what about you? What are your two?
Jackie took my Byram one, so I gotta think of a new one.
I want to hear an argument that isn't mine for it.
No, yeah,
so.
you can still feel that way. Yeah, they don't have to be different. What about your realistic?
Realistic one. I'm looking through the Daily Face-Off trade target link that you sent us, Ado.
Yeah.
And like I'm just like depressed over here looking at these options because there's not a lot here that I like.
I will say I just want to throw in I was surprised to see Lawson Krause. That'd be one that I would like.
Yeah, I saw that too, Jackie.
So that's got grit.
How about I help you? How about I help you? How about I help you real quick, Evan, and you tell me what you think. So, Evan, one of the people this is who my realistic one was going to be, and we'll see if you agree with this. My realistic, if I can get there to where I had it written, was Rasmus Ristolainen from the Philadelphia Flyers. Age 30, 54 games played this season, 2 goals, 13 assists, 15 points. 2 years at 5.1. Ezra, I could hear that.
Yeah. I think Ezra's on the same page as me.
Well, it just goes to show you that
his thoughts came out on his face.
That the market is pretty thin. Evan, what do you think about Ristolainen?
I guess if we're going Ristolainen, no, I don't like that. I guess because if I'm looking at realistic, I guess, and I still don't love it, but Trent Frederick from Boston. And I think we've touched on him before too. Of like he's a good scorer, like he can score goals. He'd probably fit more on like the bottom 6, I think. And I think then that would give you the ability to then move up Ross Colton back up to center 2C. But that's a risk in and of itself. I think we've kind of touched on that. But I think that he at least gives you a different look and a different option. He's pending UFA, and he's also a little bit cheaper. So it could be a quote-unquote rental, which I know Jackie had just shook her boots when I said that. But, it's something, right? And he
I know
probably
I
won't
could
be as
definitely
expensive.
I could definitely see Frederick. He
Yeah.
does fit that kind of forechecker that they like in the bottom. He's not old. Just they haven't really traded much with Boston. I don't know if that's just weird coincidence. They don't have a great relationship there, but I do think a lot of pieces they might be interested in Boston if they're really going to sell hard. So yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
It's not bad.
As far as like he's a rental, I mean, it's better than the 34-year-old rental. It would be someone that they probably would be interested in retaining if he looks decent. So it could be like a rental with some purpose. So it's better than most.
And Frank Cervalli, I think, puts it pretty good too in his articles. This is quoting him. He's a pain in the ass to play against. He competes and he scores 18 goals last season, 17 the year prior. Like he has that playoff experience. Like he knows what's going on, right? So like I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think. I also
what about
wish
your pie in the sky?
I was gonna say I guess not Byram.
I just want to hear what your deal would have been.
Oh, I don't know what my deal would have been.
Oh,
I have
okay.
no
All
idea,
right,
but that would have been
Just
the pie in
make
the
it
sky. But I guess because looking at this list, there are two intriguing names up here. I have no idea how it would work, but it would be very, very interesting if they somehow got it together, because we've talked about how the Avalanche need all the help in scoring they can get. Somehow, well, not somehow, but I know why. But two Vancouver Canucks that are on this list, Brock Besser and Elias Pettersson.
Yeah.
Those are two pretty big names. I'm looking at Brock Besser in particular here. He's not a center, so let's not get our hopes up there. But right wing, 27 this season. He has in 48 games, 18 goals, 17 assists. He's pending UFA, $6.6 million. Not terrible. You probably need to flip I think for one, you probably flip a Casey Middlestat for that. Maybe throw in a
Colton.
Evan does not want to move on from Casey yet. I can just tell.
I'm thinking numerically. Numerically, it would probably make sense for it to be Casey. Then you probably throw in like a Miles Wood or an Oliver Shillington, something like that, prospect maybe.
I think just the tough thing is that I don't think they'd move Middlestat for a rental.
Yeah,
I also don't think that either.
I mean,
admitting loss.
I think he still has some value, especially since he's not signed long term. So, I mean, that's just pretty much just. I mean, if you went from Byram to a rental and an empty hand in like 18 months, that's
that's not good.
But Vancouver's also in the running still, so I also don't think that they would want to.
Demko just got hurt, so I doubt that they're feeling optimistic about that going into the.
The thing too is
big contract to what's his face.
That makes the Besser move feel a little more plausible than if it does, because I forgot about that Demko deal. So I mean, maybe it'll surprise me. Who knows?
Would love to clip that and have you be right. Brennan, what about you? What do you got for your realistic trade target this year?
I know that Vaguely Sober has been like razzing everyone about it, and he actually took my idea. It is going to be Mario Ferraro.
Oh, I see it. I'm going to bring it up for you.
Yeah. And he's right. It would reunite Kale. I don't know if they would actually pair them together, but it would give the option to break up Taze and Kale. They're familiar with playing each other, and chemistry with playing with another defenseman is just something that is hard to get.
Yeah.
And I talk from experience on that. There was like two guys I used to play with on my team that when I didn't play with those two guys, I was completely lost. And
Merchant.
Yes.
What's Ferraro's contract?
3 point something.
3.3.
For how long?
Yeah, 3.3. And then he's a good defenseman. He's not just like it. I mean, he plays for the Sharks. Let's give him that. His plus minus horrible because of the Sharks.
Yeah.
So let's at least give him the benefit of the doubt. But And then my pie in the sky would be Marshawn. And I know everybody's going to hate me for that one.
I don't like it, but I
like that. Hold
I don't
on.
think you're wrong.
I
Yeah.
like that. Keep going.
So Marshawn would be, he can play both wings, left and right. We know his ceiling is extremely high. Yes, he makes like 6.125, I think, but if he's going to be a UFA, that's the thing that will probably make the difference is he'll be a UFA in the summer. It would give the option to, if we trade, say, Middlestat, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to go into the hole with the trade if we just do Middlestat. Obviously, we'd have to give more to make the room, but it would give the option to put Colton in the middle on the second line, which is something that is extremely appealing to me. And Marshawn has been playing the second line as in Boston. So Kale was asked about him during the Four Nations and how playing with Marshawn has been. And he said he is one of the loudest guys in the room, like in a good way. He's extremely positive. He knows how to lead a team. And he's a natural born leader, like a captain. So maybe the Avalanche needs something like that right now. And another option would be, I know he's on long-term injured reserve right now, is Yanni Gord, but
I like that one. Yeah,
I did think about that one too.
Yeah, it's because I want to get shirts that say "Oh my Gord," but I've liked him since he played in Tampa, so I've always loved Yanni. But he's a penalty killer.
The only thing I dislike about Marchand is that it's going in the opposite direction of where the Avs want to go. But I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah,
like Andrew Cogliano-esque, but better, maybe.
Way better.
I mean, my concern is it would be
we all know
flat-out rental.
Yes,
he is a flat-out rental, but he's somebody that's proven to be high caliber playoff performer. Yeah,
and we all know he is an agitator.
Yeah, which the Avs need that.
And which the Avs definitely need. I don't care if he's an Avalanche uniform and he's licking someone's face. I really don't care.
I care
as long as he is pissing people off doing it.
All right. Well, that just leaves me my realistic trade target. Well, I mean, do you guys really want my realistic one? I don't even know. Okay. Well,
nothing. Because one of us has got to get a ding, right? One of us has got to get one of these right. So we need yours.
That's true. All right. Well, then I will bring it back up here. My realistic trade target for the Colorado Avalanche is indeed, although maybe you don't think it's realistic based on you didn't expect him to be on this list, though, is Lawson Krause. I do think that the Salt Lake has been in kind of a weird season. Salt Lake, Utah, excuse me, has been kind of in a weird season, but he's played plenty of games. He's big. He's aggressive. I could see him fitting into the Avalanche pretty quickly. I just don't know role-wise what that would be necessarily. He's at $4.3 million AAV with 2 years left. I find him realistic just because of that term and that price tag. If you can get someone else out of Colorado that maybe doesn't have as an appealing of a price tag in term, in exchange, and get him in for a shorter time frame at a smaller AAV, I think that helps the Avalanche in the long run. So that's my realistic spiel.
I like him a lot. I've always liked him, so that would be amazing. I think my pause is the cost because they're not going to let him go just for some pieces, and I wouldn't be comfortable with moving Richie for him. So he's so it falls in kind of that weird middle ground. Like, what can they really give? Like, if it's just a first, next year's first. I mean, I could think about that because I do like him, but I don't think they're going to make the move for that because he's just not a dump. So that just for me, the value is the problem there. But I do like the player, and I think he would fit good.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
Fair enough.
you guys are saying he's a perfect fit for the Avs forward group, and I completely agree. He has 12 points in 57 games. He fits in
But
right
that's
in that
this
bottom.
year. I mean, yeah, he would fit in perfect, right?
Oh, that's good. All right. All right. So that just leaves one ridiculous pie in the sky, and you guys know what I'm gonna say.
I was gonna say I'm ready for this. Let's
I'm
see
so
how crazy
sorry.
this is.
I'm so
We
sorry.
should have made a
Okay,
rule.
dream big. Dream
We
big.
But if
should
we're
have made a
talking-
rule.
If we're talking pie in the, there's only one pie in the sky right now, and his name is Sidney Flippin' Crosby, and it's because we watched the Four Nations tournament, and we watched how that went when Nathan McKinnon and Sidney Crosby got to play together. You want to talk about a fit? Sidney Crosby fits in anywhere because he's a really good hockey player. He becomes what you need him to be, whether that's somebody who's a strong forechecking, defensive heavy forward, he can be that. If it's the guy you need to score a goal in the biggest moment of anyone's career, he is that guy. So if we're talking pies in the flipping skies, it's Sidney Crosby and no one else. And here's the deal. Let me tell you something. Sidney Crosby was questioned immediately after the Avs traded Mikko Rantanen. And he's quoted as to say, I know how speculation works. Everybody's looking to talk about different things in different scenarios. I can't control that. I don't know where it comes from. I don't think it's something I'm going to discuss every time someone speculates something. So what I take from that quote is, sure, maybe he's putting it not so between the lines. You see, I'm not interested in leaving. But I might also see that as he might not even be considered in this other than to be asked if it's okay. And then when that happens, then we'll see really how he feels. And I call back to my point earlier in the show, which is getting his feet wet in international high stakes hockey cannot make him feel good about going back to Pittsburgh and playing the last 20 games for absolutely nothing, just so he can sit back on the couch and watch his buddy from Nova Scotia go off. That's just not how how guys like Crosby are
He's
built.
old. He's got to
period.
ice up and recover for the next season.
He played hurt in the Four Nations.
I know.
So I mean, sure, maybe you're right, but if something is there for him to grab, the only argument that I agree with against the Sidney Crosby thing is, do the Avalanche really look like a team who's about to win the Stanley Cup to him? And if that's not true, then I can acknowledge that. But it's hard for me to feel like he would see Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar on the team and not feel like his insertion might get them over any hump that they might be stuck behind. I rest my case. You guys can all call me stupid in a few weeks when it doesn't happen again. And we'll all go on with our lives. All right.
I'm not laughing at you, Ado. I need you to know that. Laughing at his reaction.
You guys could laugh at me all day, baby. That's what this is. What this is all about. I mean, it wouldn't be this show if I didn't bring that up.
Does a lineup with Crosby in Middlestad's place look a lot better? Yeah, of course.
Duh. Yeah.
That's the end of my thoughts on this.
But
then you have to really do it, and I get that.
Crosby wants to be the next Lemieux.
Does
and
he?
I think that's the way I see it, is that he wants to be the next Lemieux and just play from start to finish in Pittsburgh and leave it at that.
So he's cool with the last basically nearly 10 years of his career being throwaway games.
Well,
what if he sees Edmonton as more attractive?
What if Binnington ends up in Edmonton? That's a whole.
All right, you know what? I think it's time for this.
Okay,
podcast.
yeah,
let's.
I don't think he's ready yet. It might be someday, but I don't think he's ready.
All right. We are officially swimming in the pie that is in the sky. So
yeah,
that's okay. That's what dreams are for.
Well, I appreciate you guys letting me go on my rant for a second there. I really do. And folks, if you're listening right now and I just chased you off, well, that's bound to happen at some point if you tune in. That's
why people love the deadline. It's for two reasons. One is to dream, and two is to laugh at other teams.
And me when I'm terribly, terribly wrong. But there's about 520 of you folks tuned in live, and we're almost an hour and a half into this show, which is way longer than any of us planned on going. So thank you very much for tuning in and joining. Please head on over to our socials. We're on X and Blue Sky. All of my fine friends here have their social handles under their names on the broadcast. If you are not watching please head on over to X. You can follow us at all caps MHH_lab and at Mile High Hockey. And please head on over to our website where you will catch all of our latest and greatest written work, to include the last thing I want to touch on before we leave, Jackie, which is your bingo card. Give us a quick rundown on that.
All right. So it's something I've done for a couple years. This is the third version. Usually I would try to predict some trades, either coming or going. But this year I thought, since the Avs gave us a theme, we're going to keep going on that theme. Yeah. And that theme is former players. We already talked about a bunch on this show. We talked about Ryan O'Reilly. We talked about Zadorov a little bit back in the past. We talked about Byram. So this is definitely a topic that I think is relevant. I think it's a good question. What former player are the Avs going to bring back this deadline? Now, McFarland hasn't been shy about, I think he cares a little bit less about chemistry and having only guys that know each other in the room. So it might not be as big of a factor this year, but the Avs haven't made their old friends trade yet this year. So I thought I'd give us some options. Now there's 24 names. I understand to get to 24 names, just stretch a little. I don't necessarily think all of these names are good ideas, but I still think they're all at least semi-realistic. So I think there's a who did you say?
He said Georgiev.
Georgiev is not on the list. I will tell you, Mikko Rantanen is not on the list. So, like I said, we're trying to stay in the realm of somewhat realistic. But like I said, I don't want people coming to me and thinking I think all of them are great ideas. Yeah. But I think all of them have at least some realistic argument of happening. So, let's see. I'll give you a couple. I do think, and
here, I can actually put it up on the screen.
Brennan might like this one. Kiefer Sherwood. I know that I think Ezra brought him up in the offseason. I said, heck no. I'm still not the biggest fan, but the guy scored a hat trick on the Avs. So that usually gets noted. And
so
I could see him him be on the list. I think someone like Dennis Gilbert in Buffalo, he's like the 7th D there, but they love the big strong. They love he's somebody I think maybe they prefer over like a Middleton or DeHaan.
God, not Ian Cole.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could he's on an expiring deal, so Ian Cole could be cheap.
Nice. I see JT Comfort make it happen.
I know guys like Comfort, Kadri would probably definitely take salary retention, but I mean, we had a whole segment on Seth Jones last week and how serious it is to retain on his $9+ million. So if we're already having that discussion, then I'm opening the door to have discussion of some more realistic guys that could come back, which is also why I mentioned Zadorov. Do I think it's super realistic? No, but I mean, if you've talked yourself into it's okay to retain on Seth Jones, then I think there's a lot of guys that you can have that conversation.
I love it.
Let me know if anybody wants to call their shot on a bingo. Let me know. I'd be surprised if we got a full bingo. We have done that in the past, but I don't think they'll bring at least 4 to 5.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be wild.
Back, but if we can even get 1, maybe 2, I'm cool with
JT Comfort, Nazem Kadri, Andrei Burakovsky. Bring those guys back.
Yeah,
just the Stanley Cup for
exactly.
I do want to bring up another name, Nico Sturm. Now I had a rule: no previous rentals. We're not talking Yakov Trenin. We're not talking Brandon Duhaime. No previous rentals, except I made one exception for Nico Sturm because he's on an expiring deal again.
And you really mean Tyson Jost?
No. See, I didn't put Jost on there. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I mean like Nico Sturm is Tyson Jost, basically.
I think the blood is bad between Jost and the Avs organization at this point.
They usually don't admit their mistakes. I'm not going to say that the Jost conversation, the whole thing, but usually don't bring back former like prospects or guys they kind of dumped because then they kind of admit that.
Nico scored a goal in the Stanley Cup final, guys. So, I mean.
Well, for the exact same reasons why they traded for him 3 years ago is why they would trade for him again.
My point is with the interview that Joe gave at that summer 22, that the pain of
totally.
watching the team, and
It hurt me to watch him watch.
Well, it's not like
that
his,
team.
it's not like it's his decision. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly. It's
if
just
he has to
I
trade for
don't
him, then
think
trade for him.
I don't think if there is any type of like no movement clause on his contract, I don't
No,
think
there's
he'd
not.
agree to come to Colorado. So
Definitely not. Well, go get your bingo card printed out and ready for the trade deadline, which we will have an episode for specifically and during the trade deadline, which will go live for a couple of hours. In the past, we went live for like 7 hours one time. We're not going to do that this year. But we'll put the bingo card up on the screen as well throughout that broadcast so that as the chips fall, we can put X's through the ones that aren't available anymore, and we can put chips on the ones that we've landed. And see if we do get bingo live on the air. It would be pretty fun. And I'll have a fun celebration track ready for that. So, folks, please be privy and kind of glued to our socials as we get geared up for the trade deadline. And we have a bunch of content heading your way to include that bingo card 3.0 courtesy of Jackie. Thank you, Jackie, for that. And before we go on even longer and I just keep dragging these nice people through a half hour that they didn't sign on for, I'm going to end our show and thank the four of you, Ezra, Jackie, Evan, and Brandon, for joining me. I am Adrian Hernandez, and this has been the Mile High Hockey Lab. Until next time, when the Avs either win all of their games or lose all of their games, we will decide if Jared Bednar has a future here if they lose them all. But until next time, go Avalanche.
Thank you for tuning into the Mile